Hi guys, welcome to our sessions on ACCA. I am your mentor, Zaheer Sayed, ACCA member. Have been teaching ACCA papers for over a decade. Today's session is an introductory lecture on strategic business reporting, and this is the international version. Before even we get into the details, for anyone who's wondering what is the international variant, ACCA paper, SBR paper provides you options wherein you can choose an international as well as a UK variant. Now, there is not a massive difference between the two, wherein there is only one question in the exam that covers the UK standards, which we will discuss a little bit when I start to talk about the syllabus. However, if you are someone who's taken international as well as a UK variant, for both of them, this introduction will be helpful. All right, so moving on. What are we covering today? So we're going to cover SBR's overview and syllabus. We will be looking at what is the exam pattern and how do we go about preparing for the exam. So this is going to be a short video. I don't want to really bog you down on your first day with me, right? So as you can see, this is your syllabus. What do we use for our content before even we start to talk about the syllabus? So we use Kaplan content, right? So you can see this is the syllabus that I've taken from the Kaplan content. Now, as you can see, there are about 23 chapters in here. Of course, if you look at the book that you will have an additional 3-4 chapters there. The reason why I have not mentioned them here is because the 24th chapter is to do with the UK gap, right? And we will talk about that as well briefly in a bit. And the next chapter is about employability and technology skills, which is there in every paper, and that's actually just the overview of your CBE platform. And then there is a chapter around questions and answers, which is from the syllabus itself, right? So your actual syllabus for the SBR International is all of these chapters, right? So we will quickly go through them. But even before I start talking about it, it is important to understand, right, that SBR is a build-up on financial reporting, which is a skill level paper, which was also a build-up on financial accounting, which is your knowledge level paper, right? So therefore, if you have come from knowledge level into the skill level and from skill into the professional level, well done, right? It is not something that everyone is able to do, right? Because it's not easy, right? Unlike the myth that is out there, it is tough to crack these papers. So therefore, if you've cracked both of these papers, well done. And believe you me, all of that knowledge that you have acquired in these two papers are going to be a massive, massive, massive help when you do the SBR. All right. However, I do understand that there are students out there who have, let's say, come from a CA background and you're done with your chartered accountancy and you've got an exemption of the 9 papers and you've directly come into the SBR. And there are also students who have taken exemptions through various university and ACCA partner programs and you directly come into the SBR. I must give this disclaimer that I am honestly not a big fan of exemptions, right? Because unfortunately, and I hope you're not one of them, but a lot of students, what they feel is that if the paper is exempted, you do not really have to know it and you don't have to really study for it, right? And whatever you've done in your college is enough. I really have to insist on this one. If you've come through that route where you've studied at a university partner program, or for that matter, even if you've come from a CA background, and if these 9 papers are exempted for you, right, I would urge you that you still go through as a bare minimum the FR syllabus, right? So I'm not saying that you should study the whole thing altogether, but you should at least go through the past papers, look at how the questions are, look at the content that gets examined and the format that gets examined. I advise this to every student that we teach at FPA, that even if it has been exempted, please do not ignore these papers because they are the very base for the paper that you're studying now, right? So therefore, if you have come through to us, right, I would urge you to look at the FR syllabus, take the recordings, right? They are at huge discounts anyway, right? So take the FR recordings and go through the content, right? Because you will see a lot of these standards that we're going to go through has the linking back into the FR, right? So FA not done, still okay, right? However, without the FR knowledge, it does get difficult, right? And the reason why I'm telling you all of this is that I would never ever want any student to start their journey thinking that this is fine, I am done with 9 papers and this is going to be another cakewalk. This is not going to be a cakewalk, right? So on that note, let's get back to the syllabus. So overview, like I've already told you, that this is a build up from the past 2 papers, and it is financial reporting, right? Financial reporting is an extremely important aspect and a very big requirement on the practical experience requirements as well part, right? So if you are someone who is an accountant, who is a finance person, right, working with balance sheet, P&L, etc., you have to know your standards, right? In my past work experience, where I was working with, let's say, UBS or WNS or Soprasteria or EY, and all of these places, you had to have the knowledge of these accounting standards, right? So if you want to make your career in finance and accounting, this is a very important paper for you, right? So coming to the syllabus, while 23 chapters is an awful lot, right? However, like I said, if you have done the FR paper, then this becomes fairly doable, okay? Why do I say doable? Because if you look at the pass rates for for SBR, it is a lot more higher compared to the optional papers, let's say APM or a AAA, right? So therefore, SBR paper is a very doable paper if you follow the instructions that we will be talking about while we go through the content, right, and while we go through the syllabus. As long as you're following what we're discussing in the class, you do the practice, right, you will be fine, right? This is a paper that you should be able to crack in your first go itself, okay? So talking about the syllabus, as you can see, the first chapter itself is frameworks. Now frameworks really, while at an FR, if you've done the FR, you would recollect around the concepts. What is an asset? What's a liability? What does an ISB do? And what does the IFRS foundation do? Etc. etc. A lot of these things will culminate again in this frameworks chapter. And this frameworks chapter now will start to give you an understanding of why you are doing something in a way you are doing. So why you are showing an asset, why you're showing a liability. Now, do we need to really note this? Yes, absolutely, because SBR is a step up from FR, right? So while FR, everything is cooked for you, the standards are given to you, you just need to remember the treatment and you go at it. However, in this paper, you may have something completely out of the syllabus. Let's say not very long ago, when when cryptocurrencies were only introduced, there was a question around in cryptocurrencies. How do you account for it, right? So therefore, you cannot really ignore this chapter. In fact, you cannot ignore any of the chapters, right? So therefore, please make sure you understand what frameworks is, why is something recorded in the way it is recording. Then comes your professional and ethical duty of the accountant. Again, being an ACCA student, you would have seen ethics throughout the syllabus, right? From a BT paper to an audit paper to now SBL, SBR, everywhere ethics is very well embedded, right? So therefore, what as an accountant you're supposed to do now, how does that impact your exam? Absolutely, because there will be a question of 20 odd marks where there will be these ethical requirements of an accountant challenged, right? So you should definitely know that. Then comes performance reporting. These are now starting to look at the standards that are there that will help you. What are the things that you focus on? For example, the next chapter is revenue, right? Now, revenue we've already looked at FR. This is now a further extension with some more anomalies around when you should record the revenue. Or the next chapter, which is non-current assets. Again, we've looked at a whole bunch of standards around non-current assets like IS 16 or IS 20 or IS 23 around borrowing costs, right? So we have looked at a lot of standards on the non-current assets. This chapter just builds on this. The next one is agriculture. For anyone has studied with me and has probably gone through the FR, they know that I'm not a big fan of agriculture purely because I don't have a lot of practical experience. But yeah, this is also a standard that can be examined. Then you've got foreign currency in an individual financial statement. There was very little that was covered at the FR syllabus, where it was probably more around accounting for it, right? If there's any change in the exchange rate, how do you go about accounting for it? Here it is to do with how do you show that in your statements, right? Then comes your favorite IFRS 16 leases, right? How do you go for accounting for leases? Here the scenarios will be a lot more complex, right? Then comes a very, very new standard. Anyone who's sat the FR with me, they would know I have called this out, that there will be some more standards that get examined at the SBR level. This is that standard which is IS 19, right? Employment or employee benefits, right? So how do you account for it? How do you account an asset position, liability position? Then comes share-based payments. Again, this is new because we have not really looked at this standard before. Then events after the reporting period, provisions and contingencies. We've looked at that, right? Because IS 10 is something that was there in your FR, and if you've done audit paper, this was a very, very important part of your syllabus there, right? So you would have looked at this already. Of course, this becomes now further complicated, including your provisions and contingencies. Examiner love these standards, right? So they will probably throw a thing or two around these to always check for whether your understanding of when a provision can be recorded and when a contingency needs to be reported will be checked, right? Then comes financial instruments. Oh my God, your next best and favorite standard, right? I know. This is a complex standard, something that it does take a lot of time. And when we are going to do this in class, you will see that this probably is going to take the most amount of time when we do this in the class as well, right? So IFRS 9 is a fairly long standard, and you will see. So while you've looked at it, right, at the FR, we've looked at already the various, how do you account for asset, how do you account for a liability, right? And what are the business models that you look at, right? Fair value through P&L or OCI, right? So we've looked at some parts already. This chapter will be a further build up on that, around especially how do you go and account for any kind of credit losses that are there. You will see there is a new model around provisions, which is ECL, right? Expected credit losses. You will learn that a very, very important change that got introduced in this standard, right? So we will look at that. We will look at how derivatives can be accounted for, etc. Then comes your taxes. Small elements we've already looked at. If you remember your deferred taxation, right? Now you will also see is that while over there we just figured out, what is a temporary difference, permanent difference, what's a deferred tax amount, right? This was more around finding out what was that amount. Here you will start to have deferred taxes on multiple things. For example, any fair value changes. How do you account for a deferred tax on those changes is what we'll see here in this chapter. Then there is segment reporting, something again you did not see this, but yes, you will find questions around segment reporting, because remember SBR is more focusing on reporting, right? On more disclosures, right? So a segment reporting is around when do you show separate segments if there are multiple businesses under one entity. Then related parties, right? Again, very, very important. And again, continuing to what I said, that there is more focus on disclosures. This is another standard on disclosures. Then you have adopting new accounting standards. If an organization is going to pick up IFRS as their set of standards, what are the things that they have to do, how the change gets recorded, what are the initial things that we need to take into account for, etc., etc. Then there are small and medium entities. Again, all of these standards you would have not seen before, right? So these are going to be fairly new. Then group accounting, your favorite if you've done your FR, because if you sat my paper, you do know that I love group accounting questions, because that is where you can really get some easy marks as far as FR is concerned. Does that change in SBR? Yes, it does change in SBR. Is because you will realize that while until a few attempts ago. I don't know when you're sitting, but let's say until until June 2023, you were supposed to put together a consolidation question, put the format, put the numbers in, etc., etc. But now that format has changed, right? And we will talk about that as well in a minute when we go to the exam part. But yeah, there are group accounting, which is going to be a revision of what you've seen in FR. But yes, the new part is your change in group structure, because it is going to be examined. Well, it's something that gets regular examined, is that there's any group structure changes. For example, it was an associate, it becomes a subsidiary. It was a subsidiary, becomes an associate. It was an investment, becomes an associate, right? It could be any of those. So how do you account for these step up acquisitions, or sale of disposal of subsidiaries, etc., right? So that's what you will see here. Then group accounting, foreign currency, when you are consolidating, how do you take care of them? Group statement of cash flows, it's a build up of what we've looked at. But at that time, you did not do so much on the group side. There were individual financial statements, cash flow statements. And then we looked at how these individual cash flow statements were made. So there was more focus on the numerical part, maybe some interpretation. But here, this is a further bit, analysis and interpretation. Again, something which is a build-up of your FR, right? So it's a further extension of the complex situations that you will get, and you have to interpret and analyze them, right? And last, which is your changes and developments in the financial reporting, right? So while it says financial reporting, is because, like I said, few years ago, no one really knew how to account for cryptocurrencies. Tomorrow, there could be something new that will come up. So how do you go about accounting? For example, these days, there is a lot more discussions around climate. And if you do not know already, there are two set of standards already out there, sustainability standard 1 and 2, right, which talks about disclosures around climate risk. It talks about disclosure on the impact and how do you account for it, and you basically have to report the whole thing, right? So you will start to see a lot of those things being examined in this area, right? So this is your syllabus. I must say, it's not like a crazy elaborate syllabus. And again, if you have done FR, you will find a lot of things which you have seen before, right? So therefore, I keep repeating. I know you may start to get frustrated with me, but I cannot stress enough of how important your FR base is going to be for clearing your SBR. All right, moving on to the next bit, which is exam pattern. Now, in the exam pattern, there are only two sections. Section A, which consists of 130 marks question. And this question, by the way, used to be consolidation, and usually, right, I'm not saying it's always going to be, but it used to be a consolidation question, and you would have entries that you have to or adjustments you have to take care of. You make an extract of the consolidated statement. Now what has happened from September 2023 is that you get a pre-filled financial statement, right? So you will get a financial position already given to you, or a P&L given to you, and you have to fix all the mistakes that are there, or fix all the blank spaces that are there, right? So you will be given the format, you will be given certain adjustments, and basis that you have to fill these numbers in, right? So at least it saves you time making that format, right? However, it is not going to be a cakewalk, that because it is already given to you, so that now everything else will be the same or easy, right? So that's your 30 marks question around consolidation. And the second is 20 marks question. This is going to typically have the ethical treatment of the in the business, right? So if there are any reporting implications on the ethics side of the business, these questions will be examined here. These questions will also have a 2 marks professional marks, right? So therefore, if you are able to showcase that you understand the ethical requirements and are able to communicate that really well, you will be able to get those 2 marks as well here. Then comes section B, which has 25 marks questions, comes from any part of the syllabus. There is no one one syllabus area that will be examined. But yes, the examiner does focus on analysis here. So you may get a comparative and you have to analyze what has happened because of the change in the accounting treatment. But yes, in both the questions, you will be given treatment or an existing treatment given to you or adjustments given to you, and you have to figure out how it has to be corrected or how it has to be shown, how it has to be reported, etc., etc., right? So that is your exam pattern. The exam comes from 3 hour 15 minutes. 15 minutes is your reading time. 3 hours is what we get. So there is no change as far as the that 1.8 minute rule for 1 mark, right? So that continues to be the same. There is no one question which is easier, so you can spend less time there, more time here. But yes, I would always suggest my students that wherever there are numericals, and you will find that, I'm not saying that it's going to be a 50 marks numerical paper, but yes, there will be numericals here. Wherever you see numericals, try and squeeze out, or try and do them in as less time as possible, right? And save as much time over there, is because when you've got that theory part, because you will see almost all the questions will be around discuss, right? So you have to not only just calculate, but you have to discuss the same, why you've done it, what was done wrong, why you, or how it will be checked. And we will be, by the way, discussing the format of the answer as well when we start to look at the questions, right? So there is a very nice structure that we have in place that we use to answer all these questions. And while it's a bad word to say that there are guaranteed marks, but the format is very appropriate to get you good marks, right? And we at FPA, we have seen our students faring really well if they have followed that format. We've always seen our students passing in the first attempt when it comes to SBR, right? So therefore, I would urge you that when we go through those chapters and when we talk about those formats, you should follow them. All right. So that was your exam pattern. Now, how do you prepare for the exam kit? These are the things that you have to do. You have to complete the study text, which you get, through when you study with us. You get an exam kit, right? You have to do all the mocks that we give you on our LMS, the mocks that are available on the CBE platform, right? I cannot stress enough on the use of CBE when it comes to P level. I've had students who would, call me only 2-3 days before. How do we access the CBE platform? And I can't tell you the amount of anger, it builds in me, because believe me, guys, without you practicing on the CBE platform, you are creating yourself, you are creating a big problem for yourself, right? Because see, look, so how would you feel when you enter your own house, when you know where the sofa is, when you know where the TV is, when you know how where the bathroom is, etc., etc.? There is absolutely no anxiety. You will go in there and you're very comfortable, right? You have absolutely no problem settling in your own house. But when you go into a random person's house, right, you do not know where to sit, where is the bathroom, where can you wash your hands, right? Can you switch on the TV, where do you have your dinner, lunch, etc., right? That is exactly what a CBE is. So if you do not go onto the CBE platform and make it your house, on the exam day you will find it as a stranger's home and you will have anxiety, right? So I hope that analogy makes sense to you. Please make sure that you use your CBE platform as much as possible, right? And then comes your new addition, which was not there before, is your study hub, right? A study hub is a very good addition, and it has got tons of stuff. It has got content, right? Whatever we cover in the class, you will also find similar content over there on the platform for all the chapters, right? Then you will have some technical articles over there. Then you will have your quizzes over there. You will have mocks over there. So it is a very good addition for you to do further studies. So as long as you've done what we've told you and you do your study hub, there is absolutely no reason why you cannot clear the SBR paper, right? So that is how we prepare for the exam. And I hope I have been able to cover whatever queries you have. Like I said, we use Kaplan. That's good enough for us. So study text, exam kit, all of that will be Kaplan. You should be able to use the study hub content. You should be able to use your CVE platform content, and believe me, that's more than enough for you to crack the exams, right? So I hope you've enjoyed this session, and if this is only a demo, I assure you that our full journey in the SBR is going to be as interactive and as energetic as the one you're seeing right now. So if you've not already gone ahead and purchased the FPA's SBR lectures, I would urge you to do that. On that note, all the very best, and I will see you in the next class. Thank you so much.